Hi everyone, welcome back to the Empowered Living podcast, the A&E show with Ayşe Erkan. Hi Ayşe, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, good. And you know what I'm excited about? We've got our first guest. I will introduce our guest in a second. We want to say thank you for those who've already watched the first show. We've had some really good feedback. As we said, this is about empowered living. And the idea is we want to share information from people we know, people we respect and trust, in a way that we can be responsible for the information that's being shared with us. That you like what's being shared, great. You don't like what's being shared, great. You're not ready for what's being shared, great. In other words, take the best of this podcast and the information that's going to be shared with us today and make the most of it, and we will have links and we'll have images as we go to help you best understand the information that's been presented. So Ayşe, I'll hand over to you.
So what this is all about is basically choice. So we're just giving you a choice, and that's what to us being empowered is. So like Erkan was saying, just take it for what it is and do what you want to do with it. So let's launch in.
The decision is yours.
The decision's yours.
Okay, so do you want to introduce our guest, or would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted our special guest on today. It was me that specifically wanted to call him up. He's known as Shay. Am I correct? Did I say that?
Yes, Ayşe. Hi, Erkan.
Welcome to our show, Shay. I wanted specifically for you to be on simply because you've got such a background that engulfs literally everything that we're living, including, empowerment with food, with pharmaceuticals, with your martial arts practices. So really, we'd like to know a bit about your background and inform us.
Sure.
So welcome to our show.
I appreciate you guys inviting me on your show. It was very inspiring listening to earlier podcasts you guys presented, covering various topics of all interest and passion. So I'm happy to be here and excited as well. Most definitely. A quick background on me is covering different types of topics regarding empowerment, ultimately, which has many branches in it, as we all know, from the diet-wise, as you mentioned, spiritual, psychological, mental, physiological, and lifestyle, economical, and environmental, just to name some. So it's been an interest of ours from an early age to research and expand our conscience and awareness on all these topics. I guess some of us have that built in us from an early age, where we don't accept the norm and the monotonous lifestyle. So we have that rebellious fire, which is reaching and yearning into the unknown to discover all this. And along our path, we're like the universe introduces magnets, brings magnets together, and here we are on similar frequencies and vibrations, and we're exchanging value with each other and benefiting and raising vibrations and lights, and those who are seeking the same. The universe kind of brings us all together, and
here we are. I just want to jump in there because what we wanted to encourage and what we want to say about our first podcast is we've got some bits wrong. We've got some bits that didn't work right. We were a bit clunky with things, and what we're encouraging everybody out there is to, whatever it is you want to do, or you've got to, because we've been talking about it for a year.
Yeah,
right?
It has. It's been one and a half years, I think.
It's been quite a while. I would say, Ayşe, we should do a podcast. Ayşe, we should do a podcast. Then one day she said, goes, you know what, Erkan, I think we should do a podcast. I'm like, it's only been a year and a half. Okay, fine. The thing is, though, it's better to get something started than get it perfect. And when I asked you to join us on the show, it wasn't something you've done before. This is your first venture out on this kind of medium, and I realize I'm sharing that is because I think it's really important is that in terms of empowered living and the concept we're developing here, is people do the things that they've been thinking about doing for ages. You know, when you normally do X, is go do Y. You know, starting to notice those little changes in behaviour will lead you down a complete. And then when you look back, you'll find you're somewhere where you didn't expect to be, and hopefully for the better. Now, this idea of acquired knowledge and insight, it doesn't happen overnight, does it? Could you share with us a little bit about maybe how you originally looked at? I mean, we're going to focus on health here, but I'm sure we'll venture out into other areas. But I remember when I was younger, you got a bit ill, get doctor, go to the doctor so they give you something. You know, I remember that was the view of it. It's like if you were, in any way there was anything wrong with your body, is go to the doctor and give yourself over to the specialist, to the expert. Was that something that was familiar for you growing up? And when did it change?
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's pretty much everything starts at an early age, which influences our subconscious programming from what we're exposed to, what's our perception and state of mind, and that comes from our parents and grandparents and culture and environmental factors. These are all programs that most of us aren't aware of until certain instances. So fortunately, some of us are born with certain challenges. That could be, physical, in my case. So we're on a journey. We go through the standard, what's expected of us, to see doctors, as you said, and we go through a journey where we've visited so many different types of practitioners and doctors and all that, and it's still not working. So you start to dig deeper. Some people accept it, this is what it is, and they just say it's genetic or it is what it is, and they just continue with their life in that certain way. But some of us, because we're always have that yearning to expand and solve problems, research and question things, we eventually, when the answers do come to us one way or another, and that's a matter of.
I suppose it's a bit of a philosophy of seek and ye shall find. I mean, what you're saying is
correct.
That if you like,
those who seek will find, and those who find, will be saved, so to speak.
The thing is, you didn't accept the answers, or they weren't working. I imagine if you found an answer and it worked, then your search is over.
Well, instinctively, I couldn't accept, the answers, and that instinct turned out to be spiritual, and eventually you find out reasons why. Because at an early age, I would have my certain challenges to do with. Let's say thyroid or parasympathetic systems and a few other things, and people that are close to me, around me, that we've lost to cancer, for example, couldn't accept it, just what the norm was given, what the doctors were accepting. So when you're at an early age and you're asking these questions, why, how, and can't be, when you're asking why and how, universal laws, will always provide you answers that sometimes you may not be aware of. And you end up working in that field. So I ended up working in the pharmaceutical sector and seeing that side of the equation.
And how long were you? Sorry, just to go back on that, is that you were in the pharmaceutical industry. In what capacity and for how long?
The health sector. Let's say the health sector, because I was in pharmaceuticals and other areas as well. But just being exposed to that environment, the business side of things, and seeing everything's work. I would say about maybe 30 years. In that health sector. So I've seen the conventional side of things, and I've seen the natural side of things, because then my journey led me to the natural side of things at an early age, luckily, where I studied martial arts, and that would cover a lot of different topics, from acupuncture to herbs, remedies, spiritual healing, neurological healing, and the health side of things, diet, and then we start putting all the pieces of the puzzle together eventually, and you start having exposure to both sides of the world, the medical sector, the health sector, and also the natural side of things. then you have your free will to make up your mind which path you like to take. So I've, gone through all the operations and everything, from all the medical stuff, and which wasn't beneficial to me and actually caused things to be much worse. And then eventually, when it's been a long time now, researching and involved in various networks like DNA hacking and spiritual awareness and all these esotericism topics with various different ascended masters and professionals in these fields. I've seen all the benefits, and 99% of what I had previously, all these challenges, have I've overcome those and able to share this information with close ones and able to benefit from them. They're able to benefit from us as well. And some of these
Can I jump in again?
situations include.
Sorry, Shay,
Yeah,
can
sure.
I jump in again? So if we were going to talk about, say, some fundamental health principles, what would you say they might be, like, that people can kind of maybe just get a hold and consider those?
Okay. From my perspective, my opinion, you could have the best diet in the world. You could have the best dietitian or nutritionist. You can have the best coach, life coach, whoever it is in the world. Ultimately, I've seen cases where close ones of mine, friends as well, that have had the best healing doctors, bioresonance or naturopaths, and they still weren't able to overcome certain diseases like cancer, and they've lost their lives. And when we look into it, they weren't able to convert their past fears and traumas into love energy. They weren't able to surrender. They weren't able to let go. They weren't able to discover themselves. They were pretty much programmed. So-called this matrix, or black and white. This is This is what the doctor says. Just follow these orders, and that it is what it is. So ultimately, even our diet, I look at things energetically, in energy, energy, frequency, vibration, as Tesla mentions. But when we look at even food is an energy. Anything in the food, our thoughts, are electric, our emotions are magnetic. So everything is a vibration of quantum physics. When you break down whatever's in the salad that you're eating that's healthy, break down the atom into electrons, protons, neutrons. You get that vibration in the end, and that's a certain frequency. So if you're holding, fear in you, if you're holding that anger in you, which can be stored in the liver or the kidneys, and you're going to the doctor, you're just treating, you're not treating the cause of the problem. Ultimately, it is how we think. That's why I meditate a lot.
But isn't that? Sorry, Ash, I'm jumping in here.
No, I was gonna ask. So what you're saying is to look at the person as a whole, including their
correctly, exactly. Yeah. Physical, spiritual, mental, and
so through your experience, you've seen that people that haven't connected with all parts of their life, that they've unfortunately not been able to heal. Basically,
correct.
That's
correct.
what I understood.
I think there's also, I mean, like these, whether childhood or maybe later in life traumas. I mean, in my experience, a lot of those things are pretty much settled by the age of 11. And yes, there are traumas and incidents in people's lives after that age, but a lot of it is set very early on. And if you have unresolved traumatic, and it might not be traumatic as in they're very serious, horrendous events in your life. It could be some fundamental reconciliations with yourself. Your sense of being loved, fear was definitely something that we've all been experiencing growing up. Whether that's the authority of the teacher or the consequences if you're naughty or bad. This fear is used in a very controlling way, and that's perpetrated through media, films, economic failure, is all these different sources of fear. I guess stress is a big factor, and if you haven't resolved those parts of your life, then you just what you do. You just keep repeating it, or you keep living inside those experiences and those stories, and you approach your life from those perspectives.
Sure.
So, Shay, would you say through your martial arts that it helped you open up and really find this path?
Well, that was a big part of discovering a lot of this knowledge, but ultimately questioning things on your own brings this information to you. Like who am I? Why am I here? What am I made of? Just coming to awareness of everything and separating, the mind and the thoughts and the emotions, and discovering, what's in the subconscious and what's affecting your free will, in certain ways, what vibration is being held in your electric magnetic field, I'd say there's a lot of things to consider there. In my case, I look at a wide range of things like person's blood type, for example, over blood types. And as I was saying, there are many different topics and branches that I was able to discover, like from the blood type diet to people's different vibrations. You could have people from the same family, but one comes out of black sheep, even though the same education and upbringing and all that. I've realized there are people with different vibrations, and that's in another long topic. And blood types diet did help me, although not for everyone. Also environmental factors, because of our vibrations. Some of us are meant to be, living in large cities, as we've all been, London, America, and other countries. So this is why another reason why we're here. Environment does play a big role in us, and that I think is a reference. One thing I've picked up from Dr. Bruce Lipton, also Joe Dispenza, and Greg Braden, where environmental factors do affect our DNA and it ultimately affect us, thoughts as well. So there's a lot of different, subtopics we can go into.
So where would you start on let's say, for example, you're somebody who's, I don't know, got an autoimmune disease, and they're aware that the medicine they're taking, the conventional medicine they're taking, is not working, and maybe their diet's not too great, and they're aware of all these factors. Like, how would you go about helping someone like that?
My advice is to visit and see a qualified and experienced bioresonance healer / naturopath, which is something like a 3-hour session where examines your entire body, molecules, atoms, energy, subconscious, everything, for 3 hours. It's not just a quick blood test with limited results. It shows everything in energy form. There's a lot of information you can research into where everything, like as I said previously, is an energy, from your thoughts, emotions, which are stored within your electromagnetic field, and also whatever vitamins you're deficient in or, may have too much in. Also, different organs in the bodies have different frequencies, lungs, hearts. So this session will pretty much bring up everything that, in one session for you, more than any blood test will. And qualified healer will recommend, the vitamins, or diet change, or the detox, which is most important, which a lot of people skip, and just go straight into a new diet, which doesn't make much of a difference to them, and they give up after a few months because it's like think about a car. You empty the oil in your car before you refill it with new oil. Otherwise, you add oil to the existing oil, it just gets contaminated. So we need to clean spiritually, physically, before we start anything, a new journey. just like emptying a glass of water to refill it. So I would start with a bioresin healer / naturopath and someone who's aware of, who has the past experience and, has helped people.
So that's what I hear in that for me is this that good health is not just the body, obviously all the other things we talk about, spiritual, magnetism, energy, vibration, all that. Really, I'm keen on that. But before all that, I hear you have to be committed to it. You've got to have an intention. It's not something you can just dabble in. I mean, it's not a dabbling in type of thing, from what I can tell. However, someone recently posted what key things have made a difference to your health. And I mean, other than, in my opinion, being off anything to do with mainstream pharmaceuticals, I've been out of that stuff for quite a long time, maybe two and a half decades, very, very limited, But recently moving to North Cyprus and changing my environment, something that I think we've all, something we've all done here, three of us. And obviously this is Empowered Living North Cyprus. Yeah. So it has that point. And I've been asked to, come back to England, come visit, and I'm like, I don't want to leave. And some people said to me, oh yeah, you're still in your honeymoon period, give it another 5 years, you'll hate the place. I can get why people could hate it here. I can get it. There are things that we kind of touched on it a bit last show. But on an environmental point of view, the sea, the sun, the earth, the mountains, the flora and fauna is incredible here. I mean, almost like you don't have to do almost, our background in the Mediterranean is people live till ripe old ages just because of what they're eating, the environment, and maybe the level of stress levels are. Obviously, that's changed over the decades, but it's almost like you don't have to do that much, yet taking your health on seriously does take a lot of commitment. What would you say to that?
Absolutely. Yep. 100%. It is a topic of discussion every day here, with philosophizing with many people, friends that have lived in both worlds, externally Canada, UK, Australia, or America, and residing here, choosing to stay here long term. So it's an interesting topic. And there are, many reasons, positives and negatives in different countries. And you've covered most of them, Erkan. Yep. I think there is a subconscious cloud above every nation. Like you go to Holland, you feel a different energy. You go, you visit Hungary,
like a shared overall.
There's a different shared overall collective conscience. And it's a matter of you become a product of that kind of environment, in a sense where the surrounding energies does affect you in some way or another, and synchronizes with your subconscious, your electromagnetic field, and you pick up different, frequencies, vibrations, and information that you choose to roll with. And I think the main reason why I believe we are here is there is a strong energy environmentally, as you said, on this island. Even though the politicians and there is a bit of toxic energy as well, with limited minds, but I'm not saying that from an ego point of view or anything like that. It's just awareness, and at least we can differentiate. I mean, as in everywhere, there is positives and negatives. But I think ultimately we are more empathic souls, and we are older souls, and we're sensitive to energy, which is why environmental factors are important to us. As we've all lived in UK or Istanbul or New York, when we're in large crowds, it does affect us. So we need to be aware of how to protect our energy, our chakras, our overall electromagnetic fields. And I feel that we don't need to apply that extra protection when we're in Cyprus, because as you know, we have the mountains only 10 minutes away, we have the sea 10 minutes away. We got 7 months of summer, and it's just very relaxed overall. We don't have to look over our shoulders, getting mugged or anything like that. And there is that community social aspect as well, where statistically it's shown in many studies in other islands around the world, like Sardinia, I believe, where people live long ages despite smoking and the diet not being 100% full of carbs, they're still living happier and more joyful lives because of that social aspect.
Can I ask
We
another
don't have
question?
that corporate rat race.
This is something came up in the show last week that Ayşe and I were talking about in terms of returning back to our ancestral home. Do you think there's on top of that, like, because our ancestry is in this region and this island, our parents and our grandparents and forefathers were rooted here. Yeah, rooted here. Have you experienced that in any way? What would you say about
Anyways,
that?
when I was living abroad for 35 years, even though I was coming and going some at certain times, I did stay here long term. As you know, our spirit travels the universe at night when we sleep and attracts whatever's in our intentions and in our subconscious like magnets to us. And the next day, things start to manifest if we're in that frequency, if we're ready for it. So I've always had that spiritual attachment to be here, and I have that stronger vibration anywhere in Europe, but especially here in Cyprus. I believe one of the chakras, earth chakras, is slightly above us as well. So there is a pool of energy, and when you look back in history as well, you see all these castles that were built here. There's no coincidence, people had that more intuitive energy. They had a feel for, there was less technology and radiation, things like that back then. So, hardly any. So, instinctively, when we are in nature, our chakras, are more healthier, we're more grounded, we're in tune with, human resonance and the frequencies, our heart, mind, body, soul, all is one. So, we can start to understand things better, and work spiritually better. So we do have that. I do feel that history as well. For empathic souls, history is another topic like music and spirituality, which we are more in tune to. Whereas other people just love that rat race, New York life and just chasing the money, the stock exchange, and everything, which we can do here remotely and any hours we choose to, and work as many hours as we want. So it's a matter of finding that balance ultimately. But yes, we do feel that cultural heritage, and we've always had a desire for history. Going back to Sumerian empires, Lemurian Empire, new empires, which we're constantly researching and trying to learn more from. So yeah, it's another interesting topic you bring up, Erkan.
You sent me a couple of images. Is that something we could talk about? You sent one about the emotional spiral. I'll overlay these on the footage as we go along. And then you did another one called emotional frequency chart. Can you take us through the emotional spiral, ascending and descending?
Sure. As we said, everything is energy ultimately, and our emotions are magnetic, our thoughts are electric, and all have a different frequency. Love being the highest frequency in the universe, fear, anger being the lowest. And every second we have a free will choice to choose which one we want to vibrate at. Some of us, we need to work at it longer to maintain that, and become a habit. So emotions, thoughts, just like anything else, colors, food, all have a different frequency. The rose that you smell can raise your frequency. The music you listen to can raise your frequency. The people you mix with, you're around with, can raise your frequency. The environment, it can all raise your frequency. So if that's our intention and we're aware of it, we have, many tools we can apply. And all this ultimately helps in, blood circulation, oxygen circulation, chakra circulation, and ultimately being more healthy overall.
You spoke a bit about detoxifying. This is probably quite a big part of this, isn't it? Really, especially considering that most of us are in the rat race still, and we need to connect better with Source. What kind of practices would you recommend in terms of detoxifying? These heavy metals out and these fluorides, and Is there any
Um,
sort of
yeah,
practice that would be?
I would recommend. I do have friends, contacts that include this in their healing protocols, like bioresonance healers and naturopaths, as I mentioned earlier. It is one of the stage one protocols that they apply, where in some cases they use lime and water or lemon and water for a day, no food, every 2 hours, and just plain water every second hour, uh, 24 hours to adapt to that detox process. And then eventually they'll go back to using eating 3 days without the flour, carbohydrates, pretty much following like ketogenic diets and intermittent fasting on the second, third, fourth days. Then on the fifth day, they would do a 3 day lemon detox, what they did in the first day, uh, to get the body into autophagy mode, which starts actually throwing out broken proteins and toxins from intestines, liver, kidneys, and other areas in the body. And that's when we start to see the real benefits. In some cases where people have more serious illnesses, I've seen, witnessed to, applied in family where seen success, cancer cases where doctors said, no chance. They've done 2 weeks of this lemon detox, and obviously they've applied, they've cut out the flour, the sugar, anything that spikes insulin, minimize the cortisol, and stress, and all the spiritual conversion from fear to love, and awareness. So applying all that, I've seen people 12 years later when they were fourth stage cancer and still healthy. So I've gone through my personal experience with that as well. So I've, I'm a witness to most of that, and having travelled different parts of the world where you see there are less there are less pharmaceutical companies, or there are less pharmacies, and how these people are living to over 100 years old without looking for, old or weak, and how they don't have a large statistics of all these illnesses, Alzheimer's, diabetes, cancer, and certain, long list of things. And you take into consideration, what their diet is, their lifestyle is, psychology. You take a page out of each one, and you see there are many studies based on this as well. So applying all this, there's many benefits.
I mean, just one thing I noticed arriving in North Cyprus is how many pharmacies, chemists there are. I've never seen that many ever.
There's a lot we can say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just and the
even next door to each other.
yeah, it's like it's like shoe shops in England. They're just everywhere, and people are. I've heard people say to me, "Oh, we've got a pharmacy," and I look at them like, "Why?" They're very proud of the fact that they own a pharmacy. Like, it's their license to print money, and but it's not about. There's a couple of places I visited here. One of them, they do a lot of testing. These PCR and anti. It's like they're so behind it. They're so committed to getting people tested. That even the slightest challenge just puts them to tilt mode. It's like it's like crazy. So of course you've got to test everybody. But when the model you're living in provides you with your status, your income, your sense of superiority. It must be, they're complicit. I mean, to me, they're complicit.
It's feeding the ego, isn't it? Really, when you look at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot 100%. Of it that's of awareness, spiritual understanding, sense of. I mean, one of the reasons we're doing the show is to raise consciousness. I know that's something we hear everywhere. We've heard it for the last 2, 3, 4 decades in our own life experience, but every day there's another opportunity to raise one's understanding and one's relationship to our reality to another level, whether that's food, action, diet, relationships, money. These are all things that are, and how we get attached to those things, especially when you're comparing yourself to other people, what car they drive, what house they have. We've been so programmed that, how can you be physically, mentally, or spiritually healthy in an environment that's constantly creating scarcity, fear, competition?
Correct, 100%. I was having this conversation just this morning with a good friend of mine who I'd like to introduce you guys to have on the show as well, and he's as informed and more enlightened than myself. So just to add to all that, there's a lot to say. I just don't know where to start from. But there is, a bit of a culture shock for all of us. Coming here for a long time, it's not the same country as we left when we were younger. When we left here, so as I said earlier, there's a collective conscience, and that conscience, I think, here, despite how beautiful the island is, the psychology in people, once they pass a certain age, it's not easy to convince them unless they're really willing to. It takes almost like a miracle, to accept other information from what they've been programmed to know. And there is a lot of statistics we can go into, like, for example, 80 million Turkish population, Turkey, North Cyprus. We have a world record, as you said, antibiotic salt, for example. We have a world record for most soap operas made on TV, that are full of jealousy and revenge, that have been programmed in people's minds,
Yeah.
There's a lot of, as we see, just going into the main cities, we see all the latest cars, people, they can't afford to pay the electricity bills, but they're taking loans on latest cars. Materialism is very important to them, that show factor, feeding that ego factor, as you mentioned. There's a lot I can say about that, but I say not many people like it when I talk about it, but it is true. We see it around us every day.
Listen, we're not out on the show to bubble wrap what we want to say. And we're not saying we're not open to criticism, but we're not out to convince anyone. They don't have to agree with it. So I think
everyone, I think, is on a different stage in their life. So some people just are not ready, for that. So it's not easy, as you know, can't change anyone unless they want to. So it's a matter of bringing that information into the light, and if they feel it and they're ready for it, they will realize that and make changes themselves. But yeah, there's a lot of things that need to be cleaned up, and it starts from top, from government and politicians.
Well, I think the governments, the individual governments, as what I've noticed, are now in lockstep globally. So they don't really exist. They're like departments of a bigger show, and I think people are going to perish, and they're going to demise. They're instrumental in their own demise, whether it's chasing the money and the status and the position in life, or whether it's acquiescing to these new medical impositions that we're being put under. Clearly a lot of these requirements are not for the benefit of the wider human population, in my view. And I think maybe, my mum's got a saying, "Her kuzu kendi bacağından asılır." And in English, like every sheep hangs on its own leg. At the end of the day, you are going to, there's a causality here, that if you do something, whether you're told to take an injection or wear a mask or shut your business down or whatever you're told to do, if you comply, you are instrumental in that. You have. I saw, I think it's Dr. Malone, it said something about soon you're going to hear the medical industry say no one made you take the injections. You took it because you chose to, and I agree with that. Yes, there was pressure put on people to take it, but ultimately the only thing to stop you having it is saying no. I'm not going to, and I know that's not easy for everyone. But the reality is, I mean, you hear here a lot of people say, "Well, what can you do? I had to take it." I'm like, just say no. Most powerful word in the universe at the moment is no. So we're getting close to our time. Did we covered the? Let me just go back one sec. We covered the very briefly. We covered the emotional spiral. We didn't really cover it. I mentioned it. I think we kind of talked about it a little bit. And then there's the emotional frequency chart. Is there anything more you want to say about either of these two images?
Yeah, in summary, we have covered most of them. I would say in summary, just be aware that everything that's going on in the rest of the world, whether high frequency or low frequency, or dark or light, is ultimately a reflection, of what's going on in us as well. So there's always chaos and order, yin and yang, and every challenge that we're going through is actually an opportunity to expand our conscience, our awareness, and to choose whichever path we like to take, good or bad.
But there's that word again, isn't it? That you get to choose. You could be spiraling down to some low emotions. I mean, some of our audience might be, in doubt, impatient, feeling revenge, irritation, bitterness, dread, low self-esteem. You're having those emotions, and they are part of the kit of being a human being, of being an emotional human being. I think what we want to encourage in the world of empowerment is that you can choose a lesser, not so damaging thought. Maybe when you're in blame, you could get to boredom, or just taking that turn from spiraling one way is just turn it to go the other way. You can't always jump from self-doubt, unworthiness, self-worth to living a life of abundance and knowledge and happiness and fulfillment. It's a big ask. And one of the things I've always encouraged is like just turn, just take it back in. That's here Zara done their calendar. From wherever if you're going down the wrong track and you turn and you just go back the other way, you've turned it. And I really hope that somebody listening to this or this information, it just helps them turn in a direction that's in a more empowering, more fulfilling, more grounded for them, and more of a value. What factors and what ways do you manage to turn? Because I imagine Ayesha as well. How do what ways do you turn yourself from those negative or spiraling down, and you find yourself moving back up? Are there any habits, techniques that you take on?
Well, I think past experiences play a big role. That's why I think it's no coincidence that we are digging deeper into these topics and our conscience and trying to master all this. Personally, I have had my out-of-body experiences where my soul's left the body in many different occasions, different locations of the world, whether that's been from car accidents or health reasons. That was an awakening moment for me, where you see that we are not this body, we are not this, not to get attached to this world, not to get attached to this life, and everything going on around us. Whereas, and when you look at the frequency chart, attachment, desire is one of the two of the roots of suffering as well. That lowers our frequency.
It's a major part of marketing, isn't it?
Yeah. So
major part.
Definitely. Oh yeah, subliminal messaging and all that involved in that. So because of these life impacting experiences I've had, and out of body experiences, I'm always reminded of that. It's always there with me, and I realize that we're living in so many parallel worlds, and anything that you imagine is already happened. So you can match your frequency and get to that level of create that reality. While we're here, we can use all this for an advantage. But I think it's a matter of coming to that awareness, and everyone has their time. That's why some people need to go through certain experiences, whether they need to suffer or certain things happen to experience all this, and others don't. So we just have to respect that and just be aware of it and allow everything to take place.
So I think on that note, we're getting close to signing off. I think that's a great thought to leave us on there. I really appreciate it. If you're listening to the show and you like what we're sharing, please like and subscribe, share the page with other people. We also have a mighty network platform called Empowered Living North Cyprus. You can find us there. The links will be below. We'll also we'll add some other links to health ideas and connections below this page. Ayşe, last words?
Where can people find you, Shay?
For you guys,
Yeah,
for you guys, our best way is.
you're just
Yeah,
so
I
full
think,
of
yeah,
wisdom. You're just so full of wisdom.
Well,
We
you're on
could
the
talk
you're
to
on the
you
platform
forever.
as well. So
Yeah.
he's on the
Well,
yeah.
I think we're just. I think I'm on the platform actually. Mighty Networks, definitely. They can find me from there. Happy to help anyone anytime. And I think there's a reason why we are here as well, and is to grow this knowledge and to help the seekers, as we said. So definitely, yeah, I'm available on that Mighty Networks.
Brilliant. Listen, guys, I want to thank you for joining us today, Aish.
Thank you.
Last thoughts?
It's been really informative. Take of it what you will. Life is your choice.
And on that note,
Yeah.
take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. See you soon. Bye.